Hi, welcome to the Southern Institute of Technology's Certificate in General Horticulture. I'm Melissa. Well, today we're here in Balfour, where amongst all this mud, there's a major lily operation going on. But more about that later. Firstly, here's what's on the show today. Coming up, we see that being a pansy isn't so bad after all, but I would still prefer to grow indoors away from the cold. Have the Dutch taken over the Balfour fields? Let's get bulb digging. Are critters bugging your roses? Get your masks on and your spraying apparatus out. It's time to give those pests the boot. Claire, how often should people be spraying roses?
For this winter spray, end of May would be a good time to start with your lime sulphur, followed up a month later with the oil and copper. And that's what we call the clean-up time. Cleans up all the bacteria, any disease that can be harbouring in the bark, and then hatch out in the summer and attack again. So if you use no other spraying at all, this would be the most important sprays to do.
So there's a lot of equipment in front of us. Is this all part of the spraying process?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So talk me through the steps if I was a first-time sprayer. What would I need to know and do?
First of all, you have to think of your own safety. So it is important to have a spraying mask and not just a dust mask. Have a spraying mask that actually has filters.
Okay.
Because if you can smell the spray, you are actually inhaling it. And with a good mask like this, you can't smell one bit of spray.
And can you get these from places like garden shops?
Garden shops and hardware shops.
Okay.
Yes, most people carry a good range.
Okay.
Also, gloves are very important when handling chemicals.
Okay.
Because of the getting chemicals within the spores and pores of your skin. So wear a good pair of gloves. I like these because they breathe and I don't sweat in them.
Okay.
Another important thing is hats, because your hair has pores again, which if you're spraying high, it can be going on your hair, and with that it's going into your body.
Right.
So wear a hat and cover yourself with clothing.
Okay, very interesting. And what about this? What's this for?
This is the actual spraying unit, and to which we put the spray in and diluted by the water that's held in it.
Okay. And what sort of spray would you put in it?
This one, for this time, we would use lime sulphur because of the time of year.
Okay. And is there a special knack to spraying properly? Like how high up do you spray?
The most important thing is most people spray over, which is fine, you're getting the tops, but never forget to spray underneath, because that's where most of the bugs harbour, in the shelter under the leaf and up the stems.
Okay. So this is one form of spraying. This is sort of going into winter. When are other times throughout the year that it would be beneficial to spray? Well,
you would follow up a month later. Never mix anything with lime sulphur. So it's a by yourself spray, okay, and it ensures everything's dormant. You would follow afterwards with another clean-up spray, which will do the same sort of thing, but it gets right into the pores. It's got an oil in it which will smother anything that's hiding in the cracks of barks and things like that. And your copper oxy, which will get all the fungal type diseases and spots and black spots. And you can use this on your fruit trees and all deciduous trees. But this is a very important spray. This is the one that if you can't spray anything else, do this one.
Right, okay.
And those are both the winter sprays.
So that's all the roses in the garden?
Roses, deciduous trees, fruit trees, currants, all that sort of thing. Okay,
Claire, we'd love to see a demo.
Right. Well, first of all, the gloves. Must do the gloves. It keeps the spray off my hands. We have 3 litres of water in here, and this is 100 mils, so we will mix it, and always mix to the correct dilution rate, okay, which it shows on here. A safety cap, push down, undo, and then we mix the lime sulphur in. And so on.
Okay.
That'll do for a demo. Okay. We have to put the top on because there's always somebody that, including myself, which we knock that over, and it does stain. Right, put it in there to mix it well, because some of it could be floating. Give it a good shake, make sure it's all mixed up. And then we pump up to get the pressure. It doesn't smell very nice, this stuff, but it does a good job. Good pump up, good pressure so that you can get right under the leaves and up all the stems. Here we go.
Very good.
And we'll head over here.
Hi, my name's Liz and you're with us here today at Dyax, and I'm just going to show you how to pot up some flower plants. I've got some cyclamen here. Cyclamen have always been known to be a bit tricky for watering. The worst thing about them is they've got such a big bulb near the top of the plant that they're better watering from the bottom so they can suck up the moisture that they need. A lot of people water from the top and the bulb starts to rot because it gets too wet. Just going to knock these out of here. They look quite nice in a rearrangement of 3 in a pot, especially popular for the winter months. Another thing is to make sure you've got good drainage. If you've got a good potting mix, that's usually okay. But we also have pumice that you could mix with the soil to help the drainage. It's quite free, helps it free drain. There's a wee bit of pumice already mixed in with this potting mix, but if you had a really heavy potting mix, you're probably best to add a wee bit to it. Or alternatively, for a bit of decoration on the top, you could just sprinkle a wee bit around for a bit of decoration. You could also use things like bark chips or stones or things like that. So with the cyclamen, as I say, it's best to water it from underneath. So if you have a large saucer and put the water in it, the cyclamen can just suck up whatever they need from there. And happy gardening.
I hope you've taken note of those handy tips. Thanks to Liz and the team at Dyax. If an instant flower fix is what you're after, well, you've come to the right place. We're off to Queen's Park Winter Gardens, where chrysanthemums are the flavour of the month.
Chrysanthemums are a genus of about 30 different species with hundreds of cultivars. They originally come from Asia. They were originally cultivated in China as a flowering herb and later distributed through the world. They like warmth. They don't like to be too wet. They don't like to be too packed in. They can get rot pretty quickly if they're too close to other chrysanthemums or other plants. There are varieties that you can buy that you can grow outdoors very well. It does get warm enough here. In some places you may have to cover them over winter, but they tend to die back in wintertime and they will come back in springtime. They can be easily cut back. Quite heavily. They will endure it and come back quite well. I would say that most things would probably grow better in the North Island than in the South Island. The farther south you come, the more frost you have, the harder it is to grow things. But I have seen chrysanthemums growing here and in Dunedin quite well. So the main colors that you see are the whites and the yellows and the oranges probably. Occasionally you will see some strong reds and purples, but I don't think it's as common with chrysanthemums. They have a very funny smell, kind of like God, the only thing I can think of, this is going to be horrible, but like cat pee kind of smell. Well, they'll come up in early spring, and they will start budding sort of mid-spring, early summer, and will come to full bloom in summer. End of summer, they start to die back. That you'll see the leaves will start turning yellow, flowers will start dying off, and this is the time to cut them back and wait until next spring until they come back. If you want to take cuttings off them, early spring would be the way to would be the time to, or sorry, late summer, early spring is the time to sow them from seed. By cutting them back, you basically cut them back to the ground to remove all the dead wood and all the dead leaves, and they will shoot up from the ground again. And because you can grow them outdoors, people I think do prefer to. And here we grow them indoors, because everything in here is indoors. But most people do grow them outdoors because they can get so tall. And here they're only in here for probably a couple of weeks. So it doesn't really matter how tall they get because they just leave after a couple of weeks. But if they were to stay in here, they would slowly get very, very tall. You have sort of longish, thick stalks, and they have buds that will come out of every flower. Well, every leaf will have a little bud that will shoot out, and this is where the flower would come out of. They come out like little balls of buds, and then they open up into a flower. Now this is the mature stage of it, so after this the flowers will start drying out and falling off pretty soon.
There's plenty of mud, lots of machines, and huge amounts of lily bulbs. Let's find out who's behind all of this.
Southern Flora, they've been growing lilies for 15 years, started on a small scale and now is a bit larger scale. And it's basically lily propagation and, you know, exporting lilies. Originally was just to Holland and now exporting to Japan, Canada and Australia and some other various countries.
Gee. So how many lilies would you export annually?
Last year then we exported just over 6 million, and this year we're still hoping to maybe 9 million for export, so it just depends on how this year the crop looks.
Gee, it's huge numbers, isn't it? So tell us, what's going on out here today?
This is the first process. They're digging the lilies today. So we've got basically a Grimmy, it's a spud harvester converted slightly, and they're just digging each bed, one on each beside each other, and it'll take probably at least two trailers to do a row. And then of course that trailer's going to the wash area.
Right. So what's the beginning process from putting the bulbs into the ground?
We put them in the ground in October, and then basically once they come up we start, you know, do a little bit of weed selecting and do some selecting virus and things like that. So, and they're basically growing through the summer months, and we do the debudding, which is basically taking the tip off before it flowers so that the goodness goes into the bulb, and yeah, so we're in bulb production rather than in flowers.
So this big machine here, it's pulling the bulbs out, is it? Out of the ground?
Yeah, it's got, it's lifting them straight up, and it's got a series of belts so that it has shakers on it to sort of try and shake some of the soil off. So we're just basically minimising the amount of soil that we cut to, you know, to be washed, because as we go through the processes you wash all the soil off the bulb before you can export it. Yeah.
So roughly how many lily bulbs would you have in a patch, in a strip just like this one?
You're looking at just about 50,000 lilies line. So that's for each bed, depending on, you know, size up or down.
And what are the best conditions for growing the lilies?
You need reasonably free draining soil and, you know, good sunlight and warmth. And we do need free draining anyway for the winter time, basically, just so the machines don't damage the ground too much, and also you don't take too much soil, you know, for washing for the next process.
And do they grow better in some parts of the country than others?
Yes, we do think so. We've grown them out at McNab and quite close to Gore, but what we found was it's much better sort of up in Balfour. There's a bit more heat and probably not quite as much rainfall just for the winter and the other months. So yeah, we've moved up here basically. Yeah, we're hoping it's the best place.
Fantastic. I think we should go get a bit closer.
Yeah.
Get a bit closer to the action.
Okay.
So is the purpose just to get them clean?
Yeah, the first part just to get them clean enough so they can start working with them in town. So we've got a lot of staff to pull them all apart, and then we've got another wash in town yet before export.
All right. It's pretty big machinery. Can you talk us through what's happening behind us?
So we've got the trailers from the harvester, and they're first tipping up into the hopper, and then there's 2 Van Dyke washers. That machinery is basically from Holland, and the first ones are going in and washing each part, and then you've got belts carrying the bulbs all the way through. And then that's sort of as clean as we can get it on the first pass before they start working with them in town.
Right. So how many washing cycles is there all up?
We've got 2 other washers for export in town, so, and then they should be clean enough for Japan or other countries that they're going to.
And is that a similar sort of process as what's going on here?
But a wee bit simpler. We're just using basically the bins and just a very small hopper and just a couple of people, and very similar to that last wash, and they're just using jets of water to clean the bulbs, and just goes through slowly, and it's much less soil. You can see from that part there, then there's not much more to wash off, and they should be quite clean.
Right. So what is a hopper?
Oh, the hopper is just what we call, that's the first part where they're tipping in with the trailer, and that's just about basically moving up into the wash part. Yeah, so, but it's much smaller in town. You're only just using each bin, and then you're just tipping the bin in as you go.
Right.
So there'll be a couple of people working on that.
So is it only water that's coming through these jets?
Yeah, that's just water from the cycling pond. It basically, one side the soil settling, and then the other side you're using the same water and you're just moving it. It's like sucking it back up and putting it through the jets again.
Oh right, so it's the same water that's getting recycled.
Yeah, it's
back
basically
through.
the same water, and then it's the soil settles on one side, and then you're pumping the water from the other side again.
So is there any treatment or anything else that's added, or is it just pure water?
No, it's just water, and then once the water's gone in the summertime, we just take the soil and put it back onto the fields that we've taken off. Because you can imagine, we've got the pond out there is 200 metres by 50, so you've got, it sort of fills up sort of half with soil, so then we're just taking that back out and putting it on the fields.
Right. How long does it take to go right through this rigmarole?
Well, that trailer is just about empty, sort of each trailer maybe 15 minutes, say. Yeah, something like that. Just depends on the size of the bulbs, sort of how much product's coming through. So yeah, probably 15 minutes for each trailer anyway. It's probably 10 cubes of material with bulbs, and soil in each trailer.
Cool. Should we go on to the next stage then?
Yeah, we'll do that. So these bins have come from the field, and they're stored in the cooler here at 3 degrees, and we're blowing air through them just to keep them cool, and they'll stay in here a couple of days before we start processing them.
Right, okay.
Yep. So we'll close that.
Ooh.
And for the export wash, we've got 2 export washers outside here. And
this is what you're telling us about earlier.
yeah. So before you can export the bulbs, you have to have them no soil on the bulbs at all.
Okay. So this is the final cleaning process right here.
Basically, that's the final before we start weigh grading and counting, and then basically packed in black crates and put in containers and then exported overseas.
Where do they mainly get exported to?
Japan is the main exporter, and that's 12 to 15 containers, and still Holland, Australia, China and Taiwan.
Great, thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you, yeah, that's good.
Hello, my name's Lindsay McGarry. I'm a retired fruit grower from Central Otago, retired vegetable grower from Australia. We used to have 2,500 fruit trees and 30 acres of cultivation, but here we've got about 40 fruit trees and about 3 acres of cultivation. We grow under a clean food program, the California Health and Safety Code, which is very strict in chemical residues and product, particularly endocrine disrupting chemicals. Here are the flowers that we grow. We have a range of flowers which we put through the middles of the crops to attract beneficial insects. We can't show you in at the moment because it's the middle of the winter and we're in clean-up mode. There are other flowers that we make jams out of. We even use a lot of flowers in food. We deep fry the stems, the stamens at least, sorry about that. Try a courgette flower for an example. Dip it in batter and deep fry it. Fantastic. There's a lot of use for flowers and decorative things on food and forming part and parcel of your food. Our main use of flowers here is not that they look good, but they have an actual purpose.
Throughout the show, we've looked at various stages of the floriculture life cycle. From seed to flower bed. It's quite an interesting process for the humble flower. But it doesn't end there. Oh no, it's time to get flower arranging. So what's the green in the bottom of the flower arrangement?
Oh, the green leaves that I'm putting in there, that's called salal.
Okay. And the sort of base that it's going into, what's that?
That's oasis. It holds water. There's 2 types. There's a grey one and a green one. And the green one's for water and fresh flowers, while the grey one is for artificials.
So do you think having that on the bottom helps to get a really good shape for your flowers?
Oh yes, it lets us put things on any angle that we want to. I can put it out here for example, or I can sit it up there.
So even if you were arranging flowers at home, would it be a good idea to use that?
Yes, you can buy that from florists and wholesalers.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what about this here that you're putting in there?
Well, it's part of the leucadendron family. There's a lot of different leucadendron varieties. This is one here.
Oh, nice.
And there's another one there. So, yeah, quite... I'm just doing a little pot that's got a mixture of greens in it today.
Very nice.
The girl's going to be following when I'm finished. So we're just grouping a few bits and pieces in here.
So with flower arranging, is it always good to start off putting your greenery in first?
Well, you need a good firm base in the bottom because it's pretty hard to put your greens in after you've put your flowers on. And especially when you're using oasis, you've got to really cover where you're working.
So do the 2 sides usually have to match up, like what you do on one side you do on the other?
Not necessarily. Sometimes we can be balancing by something being completely weightier on one side and on an asymmetrical shape form. Sometimes space will balance out the other side of the design, so it varies. Every design's different.
What about colours with flowers? Are there some colours that you just shouldn't put together, or does sort of anything go these days?
Well, anything goes, but with a little bit of caution. You really can break the rules, but you have to watch and add some extra bits in that help you get away with some of the wild, wacky colour schemes that you wouldn't have once used.
Making this look all so easy. I noticed that you're cutting the leaves on a certain angle. Are you
Yes.
meant to cut
By
them?
cutting the leaf end here, the stalk, on a sharp angle, it allows it to drink more. There's a wider surface for the flower, for the food to go up. And we also cut off, after we've bought the flowers back from the market, we take a good inch off and then cut them and put them in water. That takes away any dried ends and cells.
So where do most of the flowers come from at this time of year?
Well, we buy from the local market as much as possible, but it is necessary because you can't get everything from locally to send to Auckland and Christchurch.
But
some of our flowers are imported.
Oh really, where from?
Oh, Singapore, Australia, all over the world.
Gee.
World's a small place for flowers these days. They are imported and we're exporting just as much too.
Really? These are really beautiful. What's the name of those?
Those are freesias and they're fragrant and everybody loves freesias.
So will they open up much? Or do
Yes,
stay
they
quite
will
small?
open. There's one blooming there that's just beginning to open, a little bit in the white colour. I'm sticking to
Beautiful.
these wintry shades.
So how can you manage to import and export flowers so far? How do they keep?
It's all in the conditioning and the preparation and the cutting at the right times of day and getting transport to airports on time. That's all a part of it. And the exporters, they actually repack stock and do consignment lots to get them away. So that's a simple little pot, the sort of thing that the girls are going to be moving on to doing later on this morning.
Great. And I see you're removing quite a lot of the leaves. Is there
Yes.
anything that's going to be
Well,
down
anything
to
below
now?
the waterline in the way of foliage does tend to cause bacteria in the water, so we try to keep the stem as clean as possible. So it's just a minimum of greenery down there.
That's fantastic. That
Just
looks
check
beautiful.
that. So there's not a lot of got a little gap there. Not a lot of expense in that because it's just 3 or 4 roses and a few leucadendrons, a wee winter pot. Quite nice, brightens up a sideboard.
Woohoo, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Didn't you make it look fun and easy? I bet you're dying to give it a go. You'll have to tune in next week when we'll be focusing on vegetables. Here's what's on the show. Yes, I've got the munchies for a mouthful of Swede. And watch out for the short straw as we get planting with Diex. There's plenty to look forward to. You've been watching the Certificate in General Horticulture, one of Sit to Learn's many academic programs. If you'd like more information about this course or any other offered by Sit to Learn, you can contact the team on 0800 Sit to Learn. We'll see you next week.